Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is episode 154 of my brand new Comics Haul series, where I show you guys all the new releases that I pick up at my LCS every week. I've got 8 issues in total this week, so pretty big one. Some really big releases that I'll get into here, starting with Image Comics. It's Ghost Machine Day, something they've been previewing for, I want to say like 3 or 4 months now. We knew that all the Ghost Machine titles would be launching in April, and they did them all 3 at once, so I'll just be going over these all at once. Ghost Machine, of course, being this new Image Comics publisher that's like brought in a bunch of the top creators. So they have some of the top artists doing artwork in here. All 3 of these first titles are written by Jeff Johns, though. So you get good quality here. You get a bunch of page numbers. I think you get like 48 pages for $4 in this one or something crazy like that. So they're really going all out on that side of things, at least with these first couple issues. And we have a wraparound cover here, actually. This one is illustrated by Jason Fabak that we're starting with. It's Rook Exodus. I figured I'd at least give all of the Jeff Johns titles a try. I like him as a writer from what I've read. I actually haven't read any of his DC stuff because I'm not the biggest DC fan, but everything he's been doing with the Unnamed Universe and Geiger and everything, I've been really enjoying, which I'll get to in a second because we have a couple of releases in that universe, but Rook Exodus is this new thing, this new universe within the Ghost Machine publication, within Image Comics, right? So there's a lot of layers to it. You have to really understand the publisher to get into this and everything, but from what I understood from the Ghost Machine one-shot that they did back in January, where they previewed a bunch of these new series, is that Rook Exodus is about these like castaways on some kind of like mining planet that were abandoned there by like the government agency, the intergalactic company that like deemed it toxic or something, like it's an inhospitable environment, so they have to wear these masks that give them like animal powers. I might be butchering the premise there. They only gave us like a 5 or 6 page preview initially, but some really cool double spreads here by Jason Fabak. I know he did Batman 3 Jokers, right? And like a bunch of other DC stuff, so I'm not too familiar, but I'm really liking his art style from what I'm seeing here. Super long issue, so you definitely get bang for your buck with this one. Whether or not it's actually worth it, whether or not the story is that good, I think just this issue alone, with how many pages you get, it's definitely worth picking up. Next up from Ghost Machine, though, we got Red Coat. Number 1, this is part of the Unnamed Universe, which I definitely have my eyes on. I really enjoyed the initial Geiger series, and I think I like Junkyard Joe even more, honestly. We've had this new character, Red Coat, previewed a couple times now, though, in the Ghost Machine one-shot as well as in that like Geiger 80-page giant one-shot that they did, I want to say a couple years ago now. So it has really taken the Unnamed Universe to a long time to actually kick off into full gear. This is the first time we're having 2 series running at once for it, so the bar has been pretty low for the most part, but I guess Jeff Johns has probably just been planning this whole Ghost Machine thing for a while now. This one is illustrated by Brian Hitch, which is a really big deal. They took him away from whatever he was doing at Marvel, right? His last title was Ultimate Invasion, so going from that to an independent, I'd say is a pretty big deal. This is, from what we know so far, about this character, Redcoat, who fought against the U.S. in the initial, fight for the reclamation of our country. And since then, he's like become immortalized and lived into the future days, but has like experienced all these different politicians using corrupt power, like Benjamin Franklin and George Washington were wizards and stuff. Is really getting into American history in kind of a fun way, which seems to be the point behind the entire Unnamed Universe. Just putting together this timeline of all these characters and unsung heroes throughout American history or whatever. That come from all kinds of different backgrounds and have different kinds of powers. So I kind of like the idea of Redcoat being something that brings together all of the characters. Since he's immortal, he's lived through all these different timelines. I'm liking the artwork here by Brian Hitch. This is the one I'm the most hopeful for, I'd say, out of the 3 first releases from Ghost Machine. So looking forward to that one. Lastly, though, we just got Geiger number 1. I was surprised to see they were going to do an ongoing series for this one. I guess there's enough demand for the character that it's worth revisiting. They kind of left it on like Geiger might have died, if I'm remembering right, at the end of the first Geiger miniseries, but since then we've had a couple more stories with him. We had that Origin miniseries a couple months ago called Ground Zero, which didn't really explain anything too new, but it was the original creative team with Gary Frank penciling. We have him back on for this also, so we'll see how long it takes him to get tired of drawing Geiger. But I'm liking the interior artwork. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with an ongoing series for this character. As far as I know, Redcoat isn't supposed to be ongoing, so this is the only ongoing series behind Ghost Machine at the moment. It looks like there's not too many words on each page, which is not always my favorite. This one, I think you just get the standard 20 pages. I mean, you get a cardstock cover and everything. It's just not as impressive compared to the other two Ghost Machine releases, but I'll definitely still give that one a try. Lastly, from Image Comics, though, another big universe from them. This is Energon Universe, right? We have Void Rivals number 8 just released. I've been thinking a little bit about maybe dropping Transformers and discontinuing my G.I. Joe side of things. I feel like there's just so many characters I'm not familiar with. And while it is pretty introductory for new readers for the most part, when it comes to the Energon universe, I just feel like for the most part that's maybe not like a franchise that I'm going to be interested in long term. So I'm not sure. But Void Rivals, on the other hand, is pretty disconnected from Transformers and G.I. Joe. In terms of the broader universe, this one is set in space, so it's not connected to Earth or anything happening there with the Autobots and G.I. Joe and the Decepticons and everything. There's some light references, like, a Transformer appeared in the first issue, and there's been, like, Transformers characters in some of the issues. But for the most part, it's standalone kind of space epic that Robert Kirkman is going through. It seems to be pretty ongoing. They've got a big plan for whatever's going to end up happening between these two alien races that the series is set around, and I'll stick with this one for sure. Next up, we'll move on to Marvel Comics, though. I've got 4 issues from them this week. Starting with X-Men, this is number 33, part of the Fall of the House of X event. Joshua Cassara coming back on for the artwork, and a really cool cover by him here also. This is the third to last issue of this series. It was announced recently that number 35 is going to be Uncanny X-Men number 700 in legacy numbering. So I don't know how that works. I always thought that X-Men was a different title than Uncanny. But I guess there's like a long history behind that. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. This is definitely the book to be picking up alongside Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers of 10. It's the biggest, obviously it's the flagship X-Men title, but alongside the biggest event books, this is definitely the one to be picking up. Some good Wolverine action in here. Joshua Cassara is always good at drawing that character. And, not as much is happening in this title as like the actual main event titles. Overall, I'm not loving this event just because it's a little bit hard to follow, but I do like the idea of there being this big event to end off the Krakoan age, and it's not like super incomprehensive to pick up the issues that you need to. All the tie-ins like aren't really necessary. I've just been grabbing the main stuff and I'm understanding everything, so I'm liking that, and nearing the end game of this event. Next up, though, we have another Fall of the House of X tie-in. A little bit of an unexpected one when they announced this, but it's Avengers number 12. Number 13 is also going to be a tie-in. I think they're putting out 2 issues this month to wrap everything up. Jed MacKay writes this, and he also writes the last 2 issues I'll talk about. So we have a triple dip from Jed MacKay this week, coming out with all his ongoing titles from Marvel. So that's always a win in my book. Avengers, I think, is probably the weakest of his 3 titles that he's writing ongoing at the moment. I think he handles the team dynamic pretty well. I actually really like how he's able to focus on individual characters in a cool way in every issue and give each character their own shining moment. But so far, this series has been a little bit formulaic. It's still not too deep in. We're just like a year into the series now, I guess, with the number 12. But the first 2 story arcs that took up most of those 12 issues were just the Avengers fighting different superhero teams. It's connected to larger plots, but these supervillains they're fighting kind of like mirror one of the Avengers' powers, and they fight against each other because they're similar to each other. It's just a little bit repetitive. I know there's grander things happening with the events that they're trying to prevent that Kang warned them about, as well as all these other plot lines. The last issue was standalone, so that's cool. And now we're getting tie-ins to Fall of the House of X, which is a little bit different, and I'm curious to see what they do with that. And then Blood Hunt is obviously going to be the main centerpiece behind the next few issues after they're done tying into Fall of the House of X. So bright future for this series, I'd say, but honestly maybe a little bit of a rough start overall. Next up, my favorite, probably Marvel title in general, but definitely my favorite Jed MacKay title. It's Vengeance of the Moon Knight number 4, the continuation of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight run. You do have to pay $5 for this one, but this is one of the only Marvel series where I feel like that's honestly justified for how good it is. I'm willing to pay that price every month. Amazing artwork by Alessandro Cappuccio. Not sure how long we're going to have him on before they go back to the guest artist, but he's done the first 4 issues, which I'm happy about. This is the last issue before Blood Hunt, though. All 3 of Jed MacKay's ongoing Marvel titles, including the next one that I'll get to in a second, are going to be tying into that since he's the main writer behind the event. But I'm really liking how this issue looks specifically. It looks like it's maybe more of a Tigra and Hunter's Moon like solo mission. And we should be getting to the bottom of what the identity behind this new version of Moon Knight is, this darker version of him. He's been back to like carving crescent moons into villains' faces and beating them up and stuff. The Midnight Mission is not okay with this. His friends want to figure out what's actually going on. They don't think that it's actually Mark Spector behind the mask, so this is all dedicated to the mystery behind that. And we'll see what happens ongoing with this. It really seems like it's less of a Moon Knight title now and more of a Moon Knight supporting cast title. You know, Hunter's Moon, Tigra, all these characters that Jed MacKay has built up throughout his entire run so far now are getting their own moment in the spotlight, and it's still as strong of a title as ever. That's my biggest recommendation from this haul for sure. Lastly, though, we've got Doctor Strange, number 14. Another really strong Jed MacKay title. I like how he handles solo characters ongoing. His Doctor Strange run has also been a lot longer than just these 14 issues, though, because he had that run called Strange, where it was just Clea Strange taking over the mantle before Doctor Strange was resurrected. The artwork in this is probably the highlight by Pascal Ferry. It's really abstract, some crazy things going on with Doctor Strange's magic and like these sub-dimensions they go into and stuff. This recent story arc, though, has had Doctor Strange assembling this new team of secret defenders, which is Taskmaster, Black Cat, and Hunter's Moon. So it's just all these characters that he's written before. Some kind of oddballs that wouldn't normally be in a team together, but he does justify it in this kind of like Dungeons and Dragons setting where they have to go into this world created by some kind of campaign, you know, people playing the game that translates into real life. So it's really fun. I'm liking this. It's just been a 2-issue story arc that wraps up with this issue, I think, because then next issue is tying into Blood Hunt, like I was talking about. And I'm here to see it. I like Jed MacKay and other writers bringing in all these kind of more obscure characters and just putting them all together, even though it doesn't make sense, just because they've written them before. So that's always fun. Those were the 8 issues I picked up this week, though. I've got a lot to read, but also a lot to look forward to. Normally I'd be doing a review of maybe a couple of those Ghost Machine issues, but I've got a lot of work to catch up on. I'm actually going to be going on a trip, so I'm not going to be here next week. I didn't have too many comics I was picking up anyway, so you guys won't be missing out on much, but there will be no new comics haul next week. Tune in for the week after, though. I guess I'll see you guys then, and I appreciate you guys watching. Bye, guys.